The Labour Party has an idea to try and encourage political parties to field more female candidates in elections. We're joined by Ciaran Lynch of the Labour Party. Hello to you, Ciaran.
Good evening, Matt. How are you?
How do you intend doing this?
Very simply by putting a bill through the Dáil, and I introduced this to the Dáil this afternoon, whereby at present political parties receive funding which follows on from a previous election, and they receive that funding on a pro rata basis to the amount of votes that they receive. The Labour Party's position, which I propose today, is a very, very simple one, that if the political parties don't actually meet a particular gender parity, that funding would actually be reduced, and the penalty would then therefore would actually be paid for not reaching that number. Now at present, Ireland is one of the worst performers when it comes to gender parity representation in its national parliament. 13% of the current 166 TDs are female. We rank 23rd out of 25th right across the European Union and associated states. And unless we actually put in proactive measures, nothing is going to happen. The existing and previous governments have done very, very little to move this issue on, and the Labour Party are very much of the view, and what I would state on the show this evening is that there's a very, very obvious democratic deficit in this country, whereby the female population is represented by 13% of the sitting seats inside Dáil.
But isn't that what happened after the election? Are you going to punish people for parties for not actually nominating enough candidates, or punish people for not voting in enough women?
No, it's at the presentation stage that the political parties would be encouraged to actually put forward 20% of their candidates would at least be female going into the next general election. You can't determine what the outcome of a general election will be, because the public will decide on a case-by-case merit with individual candidates, but it is within the scope of political parties to ensure that at least 20% of their candidates are actually female. Now, most parties are actually operating below this power line and have historically actually done so. We started off with a situation, I think 30 years ago, where there was 4 female deputies in the Dáil. We've now arrived at a situation where there are 22. If on the rate that we're going, it'll probably be another century before we actually get to anything close to 40%.
All right, we're also joined by Mary Ellen Synon, columnist with the Irish Daily Mail. Hello to you, Mary Ellen.
Hi there.
What do you make of this idea of positive discrimination to try and encourage women to stand for election to the Dáil?
It's completely appalling. It's irrational. It's potentially highly damaging. It fosters injustice, and it amounts to bullying of other political parties by Labour, because although Mr. Lynch is saying that parties would be encouraged, in fact what he wants to do is to use taxpayers' money that's put aside to give to political parties to force them to discriminate on grounds of sex as to who they choose. Now, I don't think any taxpayers' money should go to any political party, but if the system is in place, then you must not use it to force parties, selection committees, to choose on the grounds of sexual discrimination. It's simply appalling.
But at the moment we have so few female TDs, and more so few candidates. Maybe if the boys are keeping the jobs all for themselves, do they not need some potential punishment to give women the opportunity to stand for election?
So can we move back here, Matt? So what? So what? I want good candidates. I want good TDs. The fact that there are many members of the Dáil who are not female is utterly irrelevant. Having a double X chromosome is not a political qualification any more than having an XY set of chromosomes. I want to know, where do you stand on the European Union policies? I want to know where you stand on public sector pay. I want to know whether you're going to sell off some of the semi-states. I don't really care what sex you are. It's irrelevant. And to go around saying that we are now going to start choosing people and forcing the choice through the manipulation of taxpayers' money on the grounds of sex is simply appalling. This is a republic. We're supposed to have a single nation with a single electorate, a single body of law, a system of justice that looks at all people equally, and yet here we have the Labour Party saying we're going to enforce discrimination based on sex. It's utterly appalling.
Ciaran Lynch, a number of people say the reason women don't stand for election is that they wouldn't want to be part of the gentleman's club in the Dáil. The hours wouldn't particularly suit the late night sittings. It's not conducive to family life. It's not conducive to a normal life. Would you not be better off trying to change the way the system works, particularly for rural TDs, rather than trying to put a gender quota in place for a system that simply doesn't suit many people?
Ultimately, Matt, there's an issue of culture here, and a culture that has pertained over the decades, and Mary's response there is predictable, as there has been in other issues. We know the disability one in particular to do with the Special Olympics.
Why are you bringing that into the equation? The issue that's going on here, please.
No, Matt, in fairness, I think this is the general sort of reactionary response that Mary courts by being a columnist, and she'll take a strong position regardless of what the facts of the matter are.
What's your evidence for that? My argument on anything other than reason. What's your evidence?
I didn't interrupt you, Mary.
You're making a smear. You're smearing me, and you're going to stop right now, and you're going to...
No, hold on 1 second. Mary, please, both of you for 1 second, okay? I actually, Ciaran, in fairness, instead of addressing the issue, instead of playing the ball, you've played the man here, so to speak. So I'm going to give Mary Ellen Synon the opportunity to rebut that. Mary Ellen Synon.
Well, you see, Mr. Lynch has just tried to smear me here. He's not answering the argument. He's trying to bring a personal smear into the equation. He's making a statement that what I write, what I do for my living, what I do in my profession is not based on reason. It's based on, I don't know what he's saying, sensationalism. I say what I mean. I'm giving him the courtesy of assuming he means what he says. I expect him to show me the same courtesy, and if he has any evidence that what I write is not based on what I believe and what I know to be true, I want him to produce it, or I want him to withdraw that charge.
Ciaran Lynch.
Mary's position over a number of years.
If you look closely, my name is Mary Ellen or Miss Synon. I'm happy with either, but my name is not Mary.
Miss Synon's position over a number of years has been underpinned by a particular philosophy, which is a kind of philosophy that I was associated with the Reagan-Thatcherite period, which doesn't see the state playing any direct role in the development of equality in society. In fact, it sees the state actually withdrawing any sort of engagement that it has with society. No. In terms of taxpayers' money, the fact of the matter is that taxpayers' money is already going to political parties, and with that taxpayers' money comes a social responsibility. This money is not spent on elections, it's spent on the administration of parties. The sum of money that I'm talking about are not to be spent on elections either. And ultimately, Mary used the phrase, or Mary Ellen used the phrase of a republic. Yes, a republic, and in a republic that all citizens are actually cherished equally. No, we have two options in front of us. We have the option that Mary's proposing, which is we take the laissez-faire approach and hope someday that the situation will rectify itself, or else we take a proactive position on the matter. No, I'm of the view, and so is the Labour Party, that we take a proactive view on the matter, that is it acceptable to Mary that half the population is not actually represented inside in the Oireachtas. To me, I would consider that to be an anomalous position. I think that is something that should be rectified. And I do think as well that I would agree with Mary Ellen on the very point that people do get elected on their merits, and when candidates stand on a doorstep or stand on a particular issue, that those issues get weighed up and that their merits get examined and the public vote accordingly. But the fact of the matter is that very few female members of our society are actually even getting their names onto the ballot sheets. And what the bill that I'm proposing today doesn't determine the outcome of an election. It does not take taxpayers' money to actually influence the outcome of an election. What it does is that it addresses the democratic deficit that is actually in place, whereby women are not proportionally, in terms of their figures in society, actually getting their names and faces onto ballot sheets.
All right, Mary Ellen Synon, I'm going to give you the last word on this.
Mr. hasn't demonstrated what possible difference it could make whether you have a woman on the ballot paper or somebody with blue eyes or somebody who's short or somebody who's tall. It is utterly irrelevant, and he hasn't shown a shred of evidence to show the relevance of the sex of the candidate.
Thank you very much, Mary Ellen Synon from the Irish Daily Mail, Ciaran Lynch from the Labour Party.